Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle of fear? A fear so strong it freezes you. That invisible weight that keeps you from doing what you've planned, from chasing the life you imagine, from stepping beyond the ordinary. And yet you've seen others who seem immune to it. They make bold decisions, act quickly, and move through life with calm certainty. While many hesitate, they simply act. You've probably said, "I wish I could be as fearless as that person." But here's the truth most never realize. Those people weren't born special. They weren't gifted with supernatural bravery or perfect genetics. They learned how to face fear, understand it, and most importantly, use it. Because fear isn't your enemy. It's misplaced energy, raw power waiting to be redirected. Centuries ago, in feudal Japan, a group of warriors discovered this truth long before modern psychology ever did. They learned how to transform fear into their greatest weapon. This system was called Bujinkan, the warrior's hall. And once you understand how it works, you'll realize you've been fighting the wrong battle your whole life. But there's a catch. Bujinkan training forces you to confront uncomfortable truths, and most people would rather stay paralyzed by fear than face the discomfort that leads to freedom. Before I show you how this ancient system destroys fear at its core, I ask one thing. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment below. What fear has controlled you the most in life? Your comment helps the channel grow and helps me bring even deeper teachings to you. Now, back to the story. Chapter 1. The Meeting. The story I'll share today is about a man named James, a successful lawyer living in a luxury apartment in one of the city's most elite neighborhoods. He had everything: money, reputation, stability. But behind that perfect exterior, he carried a secret. James lived every day consumed by fear. Fear of public speaking, fear of confrontation, fear of disappointing others, fear of failure, and most painfully, fear of being opposed as a fraud. Every morning, he woke up with a heavy tightness in his chest that never left him. Strange, isn't it? A man who built his life on arguing cases, terrified of conflict. But that's what fear does. It disguises itself as control, until it begins to control you. To cope, James drowned himself in work. The more fear he felt, the more he worked. The more insecure he became, the harder he pushed. His colleagues saw ambition. But the truth was, he was running, not chasing success, but escaping fear. Until one day, the inevitable happened. A high-stakes meeting with a major client. The boardroom filled with executives, eyes fixed on him. As James began his presentation, his voice cracked. His hands trembled. Cold sweat ran down his back. Then, silence. He couldn't continue. James walked out mid-meeting, locked himself inside the restroom, and collapsed on the cold floor, having his first full-blown panic attack. In that moment, shaking and breathless, he realized something. Either he destroyed his fear, or his fear would destroy him. That's when a friend mentioned a Bujinkan Dojo that had just opened nearby. "It's not about fighting," his friend said. "It's about learning to face what controls you." James didn't believe in martial arts. He thought it was something from old movies. Dramatic, exaggerated, irrelevant. But desperation has a way of forcing you to try what you once dismissed. So one evening, he stepped into that dojo. Chapter 2. The First Lesson. The sensei was a quiet man in his 60s, short and calm, with a presence that silenced the room. He looked directly at James and asked, "Why are you here?" James replied automatically, "I want to learn self-defense and improve my fitness." The sensei smiled faintly, as if he had heard that same lie 1,000 times before. The sensei raised his hand and interrupted. "That's a lie," he said calmly. "You're not here to learn self-defense. You're here because you're afraid, and you want me to take that fear away from you." James froze. His stomach turned cold. How could this man see straight through him? "I can't remove your fear," the sensei continued. "And even if I could, I wouldn't. Because without fear, you'd be even weaker. Fear isn't a flaw. It's information. You just don't know how to read it." Those words hit James like a strike to the chest. Then the sensei explained something that shattered everything James thought he knew about courage. "In Bujinkan," he said, "there's a principle called Kyojitsu Tenkan Ho, the art of transforming truth into illusion, and illusion into truth." He paused, letting the words sink in. Ninjas understood that reality isn't fixed. It shifts depending on where you place your attention. Your fear always points to something real. Yes, there's danger. But your interpretation is an illusion. You think the danger is happening now, when it's only a possibility. He walked closer to James. Fear of public speaking isn't fear of words. It's fear of judgment. But judgment can't hurt you. It's invisible. Your body is reacting to an imaginary threat, as if it were a sword. James had never seen fear in that light before. "In feudal Japan," the sensei continued, "a ninja faced death every day. Real swords, real falls, real assassins. But he didn't freeze. Do you know why?" James shook his head. "Because he trained his body to separate real danger from imaginary discomfort." And that's when the real training began. Chapter 3. Fudoshin, the unshakable mind. The first thing the sensei taught wasn't punching, blocking, or kicking. It was breathing. When fear appears, he explained, the first thing that changes is your breath. It becomes short, shallow, and tight. That's your survival mode activating. Everything in your body screams, run or fight. But when you take control of your breathing, you take control of your state. It sounded almost too simple. Still, James tried. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 6, hold empty for 2. At first, it didn't work. His mind raced faster than he could breathe. His chest tightened, his thoughts spiraled. "Normal," the sensei said. "You've practiced panic for years. Now you must practice calm until it becomes instinct. You will repeat this 1,000 times, 2,000, 10,000, until when fear strikes, your body automatically breathes, not freezes." And that was Fudoshin, the unshakable mind. It doesn't mean living without fear. It means fear no longer decides your actions. A Zen monk once said, "The tree that refuses to bend will break. The tree that bends survives." Fudoshin isn't rigidity. It's conscious flexibility. James practiced daily, before bed, after waking, during meetings, traffic, and silence. At first it felt pointless, but by the second week, something shifted. During a tense meeting, the fear returned, the chest tightening, the sweat, the heat. But this time, he breathed. 4 inches. 4 hold. 6 out. The fear didn't vanish. It obeyed. And for the first time, James spoke without trembling. It wasn't magic. It was reprogramming. Chapter 4. Facing the shadow. But breathing was only the beginning. By the third week, the sensei introduced something far more difficult: controlled exposure to discomfort. "You've spent your whole life avoiding what scares you," he said. "Each time you avoid it, your brain learns. This thing is dangerous. I must escape." And every escape feeds fear. In the Bujinkan, we do the opposite. We walk straight into discomfort, slowly with awareness, until the body learns the truth. I survived. It wasn't the end of the world. The exercise was simple but brutal. Stand still while others simulated attacks around you. Punches stopping inches from your face, kicks brushing your clothes. Your instincts screamed run, but the rule was clear. Don't move. Just breathe. The first attempt, James lasted 15 seconds before his body trembled uncontrollably. The sensei stopped him. "Good," he said. "You faced the fear and didn't die. Tomorrow, 20 seconds. It sounded insane, yet there was deep science behind it. A Stanford neuroscientist who studied fear responses for nearly 2 decades found something revolutionary. When you repeatedly face a fear without actual harm, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, begins to recalibrate. It learns that the trigger isn't lethal, and the emotional charge weakens. That's exactly what ancient ninjas did centuries before neuroscience existed. They trained in controlled danger until the body stopped reacting with panic. James persisted. Each class, more exposure. Each week, less shaking. By the end of the second month, he could remain perfectly still while 3 people simulated attacks at once. His heart still raced, but his mind stayed clear. And then, the transfer happened. A high-pressure meeting. Demanding clients. Tense room. The familiar tightness began in his chest. But this time, he recognized it. He inhaled for 4, held for 4, exhaled for 6. This is discomfort, he thought, not danger. I've survived worse in the dojo. His voice came steady. His hands didn't tremble. His words flowed naturally. The client signed the deal. His co-workers were stunned. They thought he'd started medication. But James knew the truth. He had reprogrammed his brain. Yet the real test was still ahead. Because fear isn't just external. The deadliest kind hides within. Chapter 5. The Inner Ninja. You have 2 enemies, the sensei said one evening. The external enemy and the internal one. The external you can see, predict, prepare for. The internal is far more dangerous because it knows your weaknesses intimately. In Bujinkan, there's a concept called Shin-Gitai, mind, technique, and body as one. But before unity comes confrontation, facing the fractured parts of yourself. James thought he was making progress. Controlled breathing? Check exposure to fear. Check. But one night, the sensei asked the question that pierced deeper than any blade. What's the one fear you never admit out loud? Silence. James felt his stomach twist. The fear you hide even from yourself, the sensei continued quietly. That's the one that rules you. James knew exactly what it was, but had never dared to speak it. Finally, he whispered, I'm afraid I'm not enough. That everything I've done is luck, and one day they'll see I'm a fraud. The words trembled as they left his mouth. It felt like opening an old wound, raw, exposed. But then, something unexpected happened. It didn't hurt. The pain dissolved, replaced by clarity. Naming the fear stripped it of its power. For the first time, James wasn't fighting his shadow. He was facing it. And that was the beginning of his transformation. "Good," the sensei said softly. "Now you can fight him." While he was hidden, he was invincible. Now he's just another opponent. Chapter 6. The Mirror Technique. The next exercise was the hardest yet. The sensei instructed James to write down every story he told himself that was born out of fear. "I'm not good enough. People will judge me. If I fail, I'll lose everything. I don't deserve success." One by one, the fears came spilling out onto paper. Then came the next command. "Now question each one, not emotionally, logically. Where is the actual evidence? Not the feeling, the proof." James stared at the first line. "I'm not good enough. Evidence in favor, none concrete." He had a law degree, successful clients, years of experience. Evidence against? Plenty. He'd won cases, earned trust, and built a reputation through consistency. He paused. "Wait, this story I've believed for years. It's not based on facts at all." "Exactly," the sensei said, as if reading his mind. "In the Bujinkan, we call this kyojitsu, truth and falsehood. You've lived in a falsehood because you never stopped to question it. The ninja questions everything, even his own beliefs. For a full week, James did nothing but deconstruct every fear on that list, and what he discovered shocked him. Almost 90% of his fears were built on assumptions, not reality. Will people judge me? Maybe. But so what? Judgment isn't danger. If I fail, will I lose everything? Based on what? He had failed before, and survived. Every fear, when exposed to the light of logic, began to dissolve. A cognitive psychologist at Oxford University, who has studied mental bias for 15 years, explains it perfectly. Our primitive brain doesn't distinguish between real and perceived threats. But when you consciously challenge catastrophic thinking, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain, which overrides the amygdala's fear response. Without realizing it, James was doing exactly that. He wasn't suppressing fear. He was retraining his mind to think differently. Chapter 7. The Trial by Fire. 3 months into training, James was no longer the same man. He breathed differently. He thought differently. He moved differently. But the sensei knew, knowledge without proof is only theory. And in the Bujinkan, theory means nothing until it's tested. "Now," the sensei said, "you will face fear head-on, with no safety net. Choose the situation that terrifies you the most, and step into it." James didn't hesitate. He already knew the answer. Public speaking. Not a small talk, not a meeting, a real stage. Hundreds of eyes, bright lights, judgment, exposure. The old James would have found 1,000 excuses to avoid it. But the new James understood. Either he proved his transformation was real, or he'd doubt himself forever. He signed up to give a talk at a law conference. The topic: overcoming professional fear. The irony wasn't lost on him. Weeks before the event, the old symptoms crept back. The tightening chest, the catastrophic thoughts. What if I freeze? What if they laugh? What if I fail publicly? But now he had weapons: breathing, questioning, exposure. He practiced in front of the mirror, with friends, in the dojo surrounded by students. Each time, a little less shaking. Each time, a little more calm. Then came the day. Backstage, heart pounding, palms slick. This was real danger, or at least it felt that way. Stage lights, whispers, silence before the storm. He inhaled deeply. 4 inches. 4 hold. 6 out. And repeated to himself, "This is not death, it's discomfort. I've trained for this." He stepped onto the stage. Hundreds of faces, spotlights blinding. The first sentences came out uneven, his voice trembling. Normal. But then, something shifted. His breathing took over. His rhythm steadied. His voice grew firm. Somewhere in the middle of his speech, something miraculous happened. He forgot to be afraid. The fear didn't vanish. It just lost its relevance. 35 minutes later, applause. People approached him afterward, saying, "Your talk moved me." I've needed to hear this for years. James left that stage transformed, not because the performance was perfect, but because he had finally proved to himself what the dojo had been teaching all along. Fear disappears when you stop running from it. But the sensei's final words echoed in his mind. Remember, destroying fear isn't a one-time event. Fear will always exist, but now it no longer owns you. Chapter 8. The Eternal Warrior. 6 months after the lecture, James was still training at the dojo, not because he was paralyzed by fear anymore, but because he had discovered something profound. The samurai never stops sharpening his sword. The sensei once said, "Even after 1,000 victories, a warrior continues to train." Why? Because discipline isn't about reaching a destination. It's about maintaining a state of constant readiness. In the Bujinkan, there's a concept called buan, to flow with the wind. Don't be rigid. Adapt continuously. As James grew stronger, new fears emerged. Fear of commitment. Fear of starting his own law practice. Fear of new responsibilities. Different fears. Same pattern. Avoiding discomfort. But now he had the system. He didn't need to fight a new war each time. He used the same 5 principles. Recognize fear without judgment. Control the breath to calm the nervous system. Question the catastrophic story. Expose yourself gradually to discomfort. Prove to yourself that you survived. Every new fear was just a variation of the same enemy. And James already knew how to defeat it. Chapter 9. The Truth About Courage. "Do you think courage means not being afraid?" the sensei asked during one of James's final lessons. "That's not courage. That's insensitivity. Courage," he continued, "is feeling fear and acting anyway. It's seeing the danger, calculating the risk, and stepping forward regardless. The coward runs away. The fool ignores it. The brave respect fear and move through it." James finally understood. All those times he had hated himself for being afraid. He'd been wrong. Fear wasn't weakness. It was simply proof that he was alive. The goal was never to eliminate fear. It was to decide what to do when it appears. In the Bujinkan, ninjas faced impossible missions: infiltrating castles, gathering intelligence, surviving behind enemy lines. Were they afraid? Of course. But they trained until fear became just another factor, not the deciding force. When you train correctly, the sensei said, fear becomes your ally. It sharpens your awareness, strengthens your focus, keeps you alive, while others freeze. You don't suppress fear. You use it as fuel. And then came the final truth, the secret that changes everything. The fear you avoid the most is the exact doorway to your strongest self. Chapter 10. The Complete Transformation. A year after joining the Bujinkan, James was no longer the same man. He opened his own firm, something he'd avoided for years out of fear of failure. He started a serious relationship, something he once ran from out of fear of vulnerability. He began speaking publicly, something that used to paralyze him. Friends said, "You've completely changed." What happened? He smiled, but never mentioned the dojo. Not because it was a secret, but because he understood something deeper. True transformation can't be explained. It must be experienced. In his final class, the sensei's last words stayed with him forever. The Bujinkan doesn't teach you to fight enemies. It teaches you to dance with life. Fear, discomfort, uncertainty, they're all part of the dance. You just have to learn the steps. And the steps were simple, not easy, but simple. Breathe when your body wants to panic. Step forward when your mind wants to run. And remember, the warrior's path never ends. Question the mind every time it invents a catastrophe. Expose yourself to what scares you, but do it in controlled doses. Prove to yourself again and again that you are stronger than you ever imagined. Repeat this process until it becomes second nature. Because this path isn't about eliminating fear, it's about redefining your relationship with it. When that transformation finally happens, you'll realize something profound. You've spent your entire life running from the only opponent that could make you stronger. Fear was never your enemy. It was your teacher. And you've been skipping class. So the questioner, are you ready to stop running? Destroying your fears doesn't mean becoming fearless. It means becoming someone who is no longer controlled by fear. Someone who feels the tension rise in their chest and acts anyway. Someone who looks into the abyss and jumps because they've learned they can fly. The Bujinkan system was never just about martial arts. It's about becoming unbreakable from the inside out. It's about looking your inner demons in the eye and saying, you're not in control anymore. And when that shift happens, when that transformation takes root, people will start asking, how does he do that? And you'll know the answer, because you stopped fighting fear and started using it as fuel. The fear that paralyzes you today is the same door to your future freedom. You just need the courage to walk through it. If this video changed how you see fear, subscribe and turn on the bell. And tell me in the comments, which fear will you face first? Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in spite of it. If you've made it this far, thank you for your attention and for having the courage to face your own truth. Until the next video.